We often perceive biblical stories as purely literal narratives, but they are often rich in philosophical meaning. The story of the Garden of Eden, in particular, embodies the fundamental concepts of phenomenology. It nurtures the meaning of epoche, a suspension of our beliefs, our knowledge, our past experiences, and our natural attitudes. It expresses intentionality, the directedness of consciousness. It embodies noesis, the act of experiencing a phenomenon, and noema, the phenomenon as it appears to consciousness. Within the single fruit, the apple, multiple noemata coexist. For Adam, the fruit is a desirable snack. For God, the fruit is a boundary. For the snake, the fruit is a promise. This reveals the multiplicity of the noema, the fact that a single object may appear in different ways depending on the observer, the intentions, and the horizon of meaning they bring to the world. The Garden of Eden is not just a mythic beginning, it is a phenomenological classroom, a historical lens through which we examine the evolution of agriculture. As an agroecological system, it then reveals that diversity creates redundancy, buffering, and resilience. The garden stays open in its possibilities. Its ecological diversity supports a diversity of meanings, a wide horizon of possible experience. This helps us understand why the Irish farming system collapsed in the 19th century. Monoculture, especially the potato-centric monoculture, reduces the horizon of experience to a single pathway. Low diversity creates fragility, and that fragility is often experienced in painful ways. The Irish famine is therefore a historical lens through which the plurality of the noema becomes visible, not only in how famine is experienced, but in how societies respond to it. The responses included crop diversification, a transformation of agricultural practice itself, the birth of phytopathology, the science of plant disease, and reforms in agricultural land management. In other words, the famine catapulted the collapse of the potato horizon, forcing new sciences, new practices, and new meanings to emerge. And this radical shift in the agricultural horizon, induced by the famine phenomenon, is not new. Long before Ireland, the Egyptian famine had already revealed the plurality of the noema of famine. In Genesis 41, the king of Egypt had two consecutive dreams. First, he stood by the Nile. He saw 7 fat cows emerge, followed by 7 starving ones. Then the impossible happens. The starving cows consume the healthy ones, yet they remain just as thin as before. Second, he saw 7 beautiful and healthy heads of grain growing on one stem. Then 7 other thin and dried heads of grain, grown along with the healthy ones. The thin ones swallowed the healthy ones. None of the Egypt's magicians and wise men could interpret the dreams. From a philosophical perspective, this failure signals a crisis of meaning, a moment when an established order of knowledge cannot hold a phenomenon. The dreams appear as a phenomenon whose meaning is not yet constituted in a stable way. The magicians and wise men represent the Egyptian horizon of phenomenon interpretation. Their failure means that the phenomenon is beyond that horizon. The dream cannot be reduced to the familiar noemata the Egyptian system typically produces. The dreams forced the king into a kind of epoche, a suspension, a bracketing of the default confidence that the Egyptian system can interpret everything. Only after that suspension, he made a decision to call for a new framework, a new horizon, Joseph's horizon. Joseph stabilized the dream into one noematic truth: 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of famine. Then Joseph performs a noetic act of proportional modeling. Store 1/5 of the harvest during 7 years of abundance. This would be enough to sustain 7 years of famine. This was, in essence, the first predictive data model for food security, turning a divine message into a strategic variable. He also performs a noetic act of geographic reorganization of Egypt. Joseph goes throughout all the land. He stores food in each city from the farms around that city. In Genesis 47, when the money in Egypt was exhausted, Joseph bought all the land for Pharaoh in exchange for food. This noetic act led, similar to that of the Irish Famine, to a state-owned farming system in Egypt. Different event, different time, different culture, but the same noematic structure emerges. This is what I call the convergence of the noema. It is a phenomenological constant. The world narrows to a single shared meaning equals time and space whenever human survival is threatened by a same phenomenon. The convergence of the noema goes beyond the singularity of causality. It reveals the universal structure of how we make sense of a world in crisis. So we propose a new framework called the PCM Framework, Plurality, Convergence, and Multiplicity of the Noema. The PCM Framework is not just a lens for understanding the past. It is a warning system for the present. It calls us to question our farming practices and our noemata to ask, are we in a phase of healthy plurality, dangerous convergence, or post-crisis multiplicity? Have our practices become too narrow to sustain resilience? In our next episode, we step into the digital agriculture horizon to ask whether our sensors are expanding our world or quietly building a new kind of monoculture, one we might not recognize until it's too late. And we will confront a deeper question: is digital and climate smart agriculture simply the technical continuation of Joseph's ancient genius, where modeling abundance for future scarcity becomes the central agricultural noema across history? My name is Paul Salicot, Cogito.